Hello, everyone. This is Neeta Aneja, and I'm the founder of Trends Literature Series. Trends Literature Series has been around for quite some time, and we still need all your support. So do subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you can get the notification for many such beautiful episodes like one we are going to have today with Savie Karnal, author of the critically acclaimed book, The Nameless God, and now very much sought after Lakshmi Panda, the story of Netaji's youngest son. So welcome, Savie. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. What have you been up to? It's been such a long time that we've spoken to each other.
Thank you so much, Neeta, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you in this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been some time since I wrote The Nameless God, and we had a similar conversation then,
Yes.
which I believe was, your series as such was a grand success, and congratulations to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So recently come up with this book, The Nameless, The Lakshmi Panda.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely to see. Yeah, it was released a month ago, and I'm happy to say that it's been loved, and within a month it's been reprinted.
I know. I've been reading all about it. It's doing quite a bit of, it's been quite a bit of a news on social media, and going into a reprint immediately after 1 month, which I just read recently, is amazing. I remember Nameless God was, Amazon's most popular book of 2021. So how's it going to be this time? What are your expectations?
Oh,
I love the book, but yes. So tell us, how did you get inspired to write this wonderful story? Something that has not really been spoken about. I know you met her around 14 years back, and then you decided to write her story. She's unfortunately not there with us now, but she's been a wonderful, wonderful, freedom fighter. So what do you have to say? How did her story really inspire you enough to write about her?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I spoke to her in 2008. I was a reporter at that time, and it was around sometime in the evening, around 8-ish. I guess I was the only reporter left in office, and there was this young man who walked into the office with some files and papers, and I spoke to him, and he happened to be Lakshmi Panda's grandson.
Yeah.
He was going to all the newspaper offices in Bangalore where he was working then, and trying to tell his grandmother's story. Because Lakshmi Panda then was um, living in penury. She was working as a domestic help to make ends meet. Because, yeah, because she didn't get, any financial assistance. But then, so this grandson was trying to get freedom fighters pension for her from the union government. So, and the thing was, I guess many people who went to jail did get a pension. But with Lakshmi's case, she was an excellent spy. She never got caught. And so she was trying to prove her claim. So, so I spoke to her, and actually the first thing that she said was Jai Hind. We do hear Jai Hind many times.
Yeah.
But still now nobody has said said Jai Hind to me in the way that she has said. She meant every syllable of it. Perhaps because she has been, from the time that Jai Hind became a salutation, and she's lived through the moment. That kind of gave me goosebumps. I, instantly straightened my back, and, then I spoke to her, and she was quite casual about what she did. Because that was a part of a way of life for her. So when we say that we feel that being in the INA is something extraordinary, but for her, as a 14-year-old, she joined the INA and she worked with them. And being young, she became a spy for them. She infiltrated into British camps. But then, she just mentioned, she said, we used to go catch frogs and sell to the British, and then collect information from them. And this is this kind of I found it interesting, and I wrote a news article about it. But after a couple of months, she did get an audience with the then President Pratibha Patil. There's this Mr. Anil Dheer, who is the convener of Intact in Bhubaneswar,
Hmm.
who took care of her in her last days. And he was the one who helped her find her way, through all these documentations. And the president then did confer the Rashtriya Swatantrata Sainik Samman on her. But no, that came a little too late.
Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks after that, she passed away.
Hmm.
And her grandson Proveen called me and he said, Nanima is no more. And she did get the honor
Award. Hmm.
award. Yeah. And I felt, heartbroken.
Hmm.
I thought that, that the honor came a bit too late and, she couldn't see it. And I felt her story had to be told. Because after that, it would go in the back burner. So I had it somewhere in the back of the mind. And so after around 14 years, when I proposed the idea to my publisher and they accepted it, I got on to write about it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, tell me, please let us go through the process when you actually met her and you realized how much of history, how much of freedom fighting, how much of noble thought, how much of love for India, for her country she had in her. So, how did you really feel that moment? Because you have army background. What were the emotions really running into your mind? Because I'm sure it gave you goosebumps. Yes, you just mentioned when she mentioned Jai Hind, it was like how wonderful you would have felt. So I mean, I would love to know what really were you in a trance where you felt that I wish I cannot get out of this moment and just keep on talking to her. How was it?
I did. I actually spoke to her over the phone. And when I spoke to her, it was, I know, though there was a distance between us, I could feel her energy. Because when she spoke about Netaji, when she spoke about her time in the INA, you know, there was a lot of devotion in her voice
Hmm.
and a lot of admiration. And she mentioned everything as if it was her duty, and not like the way we see it. We
Hmm.
see it as something extraordinary that she has done, but she didn't. That kind of struck me.
Hmm.
Because this lady over here, she isn't, blowing a trumpet or talking a lot about it. But the way she's speaking about it, it's a part of her. She has internalized it. And that is what I admire. So she was not looking for fame. If at all she was looking for fame uh, money, in fact, before, she would have done it much before, not at the age of 78. But that was when I guess her grandchildren and some well wishers thought that she could seek help looking at her condition. So that selflessness, what I saw in her, that kind of struck me. And of course, I was in like a kind of trance, and perhaps that's why she got embedded in my mind for so long that I couldn't take her out of my mind, even now after 15, 16 years.
Yes. The story just did not leave, rather, it refused to leave you. And that's why we have this wonderful book by you, which is written, which is, I'm sure, must say that it's pure heart and soul. See, there is not much of news or much of articles that you get about Lakshmi Panda on the newspaper. So, what was your research like? Your writing, I know it was part fiction also, some of it you kind of also imagined, but how was it? Because I'm sure it must have been challenging. You are finally, after all, writing about a character which was very much there, which was very much the part of Netaji's army as a spy, somebody so selfless, felt that it was her duty to do it. Rather, she didn't even feel that. It just happened so natural with her. So what were the challenges? Because I'm sure you had many challenges. You spoke to her 14, 15 years back, and now you write the book. I know now the awards was given, some of it is there on the net and everything, but how was your process? How was your process of writing this, I would say, a little difficult book for you to put through,
It,
get it through?
it was difficult because initially there I couldn't find much about her.
Yeah.
Because I guess I was among the few journalists who wrote about her. And at that time, most of the journalists wrote, including me, we wrote on her current state, which was
Mm.
that she was living in penury and her poverty. And yeah, everyone had intentions of helping her. So that is what was highlighted. And none of us, even me included, I feel we didn't, uh, I didn't, prod much about the past. We just took in whatever she said about what she did in the INA, which was a couple of lines, and we didn't question her much. And okay, we were happy with whatever documentation it was there, which proved her claim. So yeah, and so then I found that I couldn't find much about the time, her time there, or small instances, her parents, which are all the things that are required to write a book. You may not require them to write a news story of a 500-word piece, but if you're writing a 50,000-word piece, then you need more about her.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to find anything about her. But then there were few people who helped me, her grandchildren.
Yeah.
So first, I had difficulty in locating them. I couldn't locate them, and it took me a couple of months to reach out to journalists in Orissa who could help me get their phone number. And I just speak to them. They did mention some instances. And and Mr. Anil Bhir, who's a convener, I said, of INTAC in Bhubaneswar, he had done some proper documentation on Lakshmi Panda. So he had details as in about the weapons she used, or and many more things that Lakshmi had told him. So he had written news articles on her, and about, and he also had video clippings, a television program what he had done on her. So I could listen to Lakshmi once again in the recorded program. So these few things I took, but still after that there were a lot of gaps. And I had to fill in those gaps. To fill in those gaps, I had to know about the time there, about the regiment there. And I had to do a lot of reading about the regiment, the Rani of Jhansi regiment,
Yeah.
and things that you need in a book about the daily routines and about, and the World War campaign. So I had to take in the events that happened in history and weave fiction around it, keeping Lakshmi in place. So it did take, and initially I would say it's difficult to separate fiction and history. With me, as since maybe because I've been a journalist, so when it comes to facts, I try to tell, I stick to facts because that is how you write a news report. So I have a much difficult time telling myself that I need to write fiction around this particular thing. So it took me a lot of difficulty to, separate myself, pull myself from the facts and, take a seat back and yeah, and then try to weave a story. And there have been times I was loaded with facts because that era has had so many things happening. And so I had to leave out some facts because at one point when you have too much information, you just don't want to miss out on anything. You feel like you work to collect this information and you want to put in everything that you've learned. But and the difficult part was, leaving them out, culling it out, saying that I have to leave it behind if the story has to progress or if the story has to, make sense in a way. So that was pretty difficult.
I think your training as a journalist really comes handy in your books, and this one particularly, definitely. So, were you an investigative journalist? I mean, the way you're going, have you been into investigation as part of your journalism? Or you've been
I
writing?
mean, yes, you could say. Yes, I have been part of it.
Yeah, and also because your background in the army, I suppose you put everything together so wonderfully. So from your experience and from way you've written the book, I'm sure it's very important to write with heart and soul, and that's what you've done. You've carried the story forward of Lakshmi Panda to many more for memories, for eternity, for decades to come. And for children especially, I mean, coming to know of a new icon who was there at the age of 14, she did what she did. It's amazing. And I hope many such stories are really in future also. You should come out with such stories which are untold. 60 years it's been since INA got disbanded, but here you come with a story which most of us didn't know about. So I really request everyone to definitely go through this book. It's been published by Red Panda, I think Westland, and it's wonderful, wonderfully written book. Also tell me, I mean, for the sake of the viewers, I've read the book, but would you like to also discuss the historical context of Lakshmi Panda? I mean, how, maybe give a little bit of an idea about how did she kind of be a spy and how what happened really in the book.
In a way, Lakshmi Panda is representative of the thousands of people, thousands of unknown people who fought for our freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. And even in when we speak of INA and the Rani of Jhansi regiment, we hardly know people, and there were hundreds of them who still remain unknown. So, in a way, for me, Lakshmi represents all of them. It's not it's not possible to write about each of them, but every one of them has an interesting story to it.
Mm.
If you see in the 40s, for girls and women to join the army was something unheard of, and they did face resistance. But like in Lakshmi's case, her parents were killed in the bombing, and she was orphaned with her young brother. She
Yes.
chose to join the INA, wherein they refused taking her in, saying that she was young. But she did wait outside the gate for 3 days, and somehow, luckily for her, as destiny would want it, Netaji happened to come there on the third day, and she went right ahead and stopped him and demanded that she be taken in.
Mm.
Yeah. But when you read about the other women soldiers in the Rani of Jhansi regiment, they had to face backlash from their family. They had to fight their families to come and take up a job which was thought to be predominantly a male bastion. And there were doubts about them. People doubted that women could, in fact, hold weapons, but they proved everyone wrong with their and there were I mean there are many interesting stories, I guess, behind them as well.
Mm.
Some came from different backgrounds, and I guess I guess Netaji wanted these women soldiers to march into India when he thought whenever the INA marched into India. And these women, they also represent a lot of women's empowerment at that particular time. So they were rebellious women. Yeah. So I thought that stories like Lakshmi Pandas should come forward.
So right. But here I must mention also the role of her brother Nakul.
Yes.
It's very, very important. He plays a very important role in the way finally the things shaped up, though she lost him pretty early. But would you like to talk about him a bit?
About Nakul? Yeah, about Nakul, see, there's nothing much known about Nakul. What I have heard of Nakul is from Lakshmi Panda herself. She did mention that she had a younger brother. And she said that we both joined, and then somewhere around the war, her story, what she told me, was much more than what I have written. I have ended the story at the flag being hoisted at Moirang. Well, we do not know if Lakshmi was directly involved, but the intel she collected must have certainly been helpful. But she did tell me about the retreat when things got worse, when the INA had no food and no medicines, and many of them died along the way when they walked back to Singapore. And she has instances where they were being bombed while they were retreating, and they actually ate leaves and leaves boiled in water. Well, so I've kind of tried to bring out this struggle of survival in the initial part of the book. And what she tells me about Nakul is during this time, somewhere she lost him.
Hmm.
And no one knows where Nakul is. But she, throughout her life, I guess she somehow wished to meet him again. Maybe somewhere she was waiting for him. Because when I spoke to her, she said, no, somebody told me that someone saw Nakul and he must have joined the Indian army. That is what she thought or she believed. But nothing is known of him. So
Hmm.
throughout her life, she waited for him and she hoped to meet him someday.
I totally understand. And no, wonderful. I mean, a lot of characters, but their role important still. So, but can you perhaps share a particularly compelling or perhaps emotional anecdote from Lakshmi Panda's life that you found during your research?
Well, she just speak about her parents and shock. But there is one anecdote in one of her television interviews. It's
Hmm.
about the retreat. She said we went, and she was a young girl, a young child, and she said they were bombing and we would hide at nights and never put up any light and just, sleep on whatever we could find. She said, I found something, like a pillow. I needed something to rest my head on. So I rested my head on that. And next morning, someone woke me up. He said, what are you sleeping on? And she said, I looked back and it was a severed head. And I guess, and that kind of brought how bad times were, and how cruel war could be, how gory it could be. And kind of it, I thought of a little child going through all that. And now, as parents, we are so protective about our children. But a child who faces war, who lives through war, sees so many things and goes through so much of trauma, which a child should not have to go through. And that applies to children of these days only around the world who face times of war. So, yeah, and this kind of struck me. And so but I couldn't put it in the book since the book is meant for children. And instead of that, what I've done is in one of the instances, you could see that, she lies down and she rolls onto a cloth and she sleeps on it. And the next morning, she sees a blood-stained uniform. So I had to
Mhm.
change it like that because, yeah, this was one moment what I heard from her life, which stayed with me.
Definitely, it's a tale of bravery, sacrifice, of enduring spirit of youth, as you mentioned in the book, in the face of adversity. And as I just said, that definitely a must read, a story of a forgotten hero. So, what do you think Lakshmi's story tells us about the role of women? And that's very important in the history. And also, particularly when we really take our freedom for granted. I mean, there've been so many unsung heroes, so many women who fought the war in their own way. And we take our present times so much for granted. We really don't realize that it is kind of a gift from people who fought, who've gone through so much of adversity. So, what do you think her story tells us about the role of women, particularly in the fight for independence?
Well, with Lakshmi, I guess women have played a very important role, and most of the women are forgotten.
Hmm.
Yeah. Unlike men, I think women had to fight, begin the battle from their homes.
Hmm.
They to come out. We've we've heard of women marching with Gandhiji, and here even with the INA, when INA wanted financial help, many women donated their jewelry to Netaji.
Hmm.
Yeah, and when Lakshmi stays and with the Ranis of the Rani of Jhansi regiment, they were in fact physically ready to give up their lives for the country. They did endure a lot of physical strain. Some of them walked from Singapore for some distances. They traveled all the way to Burma, and they plus they had to not just fight; they have to prove their counterpart, that their male counterparts as well. They had to prove to them as well that they are good enough. And And I guess many of them, they had this thing that they will march into India and they were not scared to, be fired upon by the British troops. So that shows the kind of dedication that the women had towards the country, towards the motherland. And in the Rani of Jhansi regiment case, many of them hadn't even seen the so-called motherland. They hadn't even seen India, yet they were ready to give up their life for India.
Yes.
So I think that speaks a lot. And I think it was not just for the country, they were doing it for themselves as well. They were breaking shackles. They were writing new history at the time of, marching alongside male soldiers and proving themselves. So for us at this time, wherein we as women have so much of freedom and our, where education doesn't seem to us like a blessing, we take it for granted, small things like that. But for them, I guess, taking up arms and donning a uniform or a male attire, that was symbolic of a whole lot of things, a change in society, which these women brought in.
Absolutely. You've predominantly written it as a children's author, but I must say, I think it's for all the age groups. So, I mean, you could have easily kind of written it only specifically for adults. So I know you're a child author and you write, but even your earlier book had a far-reaching message. Like this one, it's not only about Lakshmi Panda, it's also about the theme of youth and resilience in the face of adversity, and so much more, so many messages. So was there anything that you had specific in mind that you will kind of, portray it as a child book, though we all know that it's much more than that. We are all reading it. I mean, there's no age limit. So you had something in mind. There was some message that you particularly wanted to give the children, or because of the age group of Lakshmi Panda, you wanted to kind of make it a children's book.
Yes, I wanted to write it as a children's book. Because I'll tell you, the children's book has a much more readership. It can be read by, a child as well as an author. So I wanted the story to reach more people, and particularly children, because children look up for role models.
Yeah.
We as adults may read it like a political book with a political angle to us. In our perspective, when we read a book, is different from that of children, of a child whose eyes are filled with wonder. I wanted Lakshmi Panda to inspire children. And I knew that, if it's a children's book, it can be read by a 90-year-old as well.
Yes.
Which is happening. And I wanted to tell the story through the eyes of a 14-year-old as well. Because that is the age what Lakshmi was when she joined the INA. So if I wrote it as an adult's book, I couldn't get the perspective of Lakshmi. Perhaps I would have, got into the depth of things, and the book would have turned political as well. And more of a research-based book, and more like, more of history. But I wanted to get the innocence of a child and the courage of a child.
And of course, letting children know through a story method, and so that they can really learn to respect our unsung heroes. Definitely, very, very good thought behind this. But what do you think? What happens next? I mean, after Lakshmi Panda, these Nameless God and Lakshmi Panda are different trajectories. And now, what do you think? I mean, the kind of response you've been getting in the first month of publishing this book. So, what thoughts are crossing your mind, or you already have few things that you're already working on? So, would you like to share, or would you like to maybe share your dreams of a book after this? What next for
I
you?
haven't planned out a book. I have many ideas. But one thing I've learned after being a published author, that I need to learn to reject my own ideas as well. So I'm full of ideas. I need to sift through them to see what would, turn out best. I'm still at that process right now.
So how does it happen with you? I know the marketing and the publishing, yes, is one of the most difficult, at least getting your idea through. You're a well-known and published author, so it makes things easier for you. So, but I'm sure you still faced your challenges, and with every book come new challenges, new set of challenges. So, what advice do you have for people who are perhaps into their second book? Do you think they should not take the first book for granted, or does it begin a new story once again?
No, you should not take your work for granted at all.
Hmm,
Never take it for granted, because
I know.
yeah, a book is on its own. It is never. I think a new book never relies on the previous book. They are
Hmm,
all different entities.
yeah.
So I guess you have to take your idea, work on it, and be ready to reject your idea as well if it doesn't work out. Yeah. And sit at the desk. For me, that's the most challenging thing, sitting at the desk and writing. Because there are a whole lot of other things to do. And when you look from the outside, writing just looks like someone sitting at a laptop. And so we need to take out time and take work seriously. Each book is a challenge. Each book is a new baby, which has to be raised in its own way.
You took around 2 years to write this book,
Yes,
2022 to.
I
Uh,
did. The research took a lot of time.
so
And
yeah, sorry, you said something.
and after that, putting it together,
Hmm.
that took a bit of my time, quite a bit.
But do you think I asked this one of my last authors also this question, and since you're again a women author with me, so do you think challenges for a women author are more than a person for a
Well,
men
personally,
writing a book?
writing a book. Oh, in writing a book, yes, yes. I know. I saw this illustration somewhere where there's a race, and a man is just running it, but a woman has a lot of hurdles
Yeah.
on it. Yeah, and particularly writing a book, it's something that you do from home. In my case, at least, I do it from home. And so, though my family is very supportive, but there are many others also who come and who feel that writing is no work at all.
Oh my God.
You're just sitting at a laptop.
Yeah.
But for a person who's looking from the outside, it
Hmm.
may seem like that. But yeah, there are a lot of disturbances. Just to get that, 2-3 hours of undisturbed time, that is I do get a lot of time, but I don't. But getting the quiet time when nobody is coming and asking you anything, even small thing is कि क्या बनाना है, or something. That thing,
ये क्या बनाना वाली वो तो सबकी issues हैं. I
right.
think. Yeah.
True.
And and how about your son's reaction to your book? Now he's grown up, and did he read your book?
Yeah, he did read my book before it was printed, and he just read it. He sat through with my laptop. He read it continuously, and I said, "How is it?" He said, "It's readable." That was his comment. Only readable. I said, "Yes, it's readable."
And how about your husband? I know he supports you since you've written a book with a background on army and everything. So I'm sure he went through it and he had his own say or maybe some ideas and some suggestions.
Yes, he did give a few suggestions about, in some part they said that I had given so much of information that it had to be retracted. He said this is getting boring. So it's part of those things, but I cannot call him a critic. The thing is, he appreciates my work so much that it sometimes gets nauseating. So I do not consider my critic. I don't rely upon him for criticism.
Okay. And, last two, three questions since we've had a wonderful conversation. Still, I would like to know. So, do you read a lot and what are your literary influences? Though I mean, you're not writing in a particular genre, but still, I mean, writing style and you have a very fluid style and one loves to go through your books. I enjoyed your earlier book too. So, how have the literary influences, how have they perhaps influenced your life and also your writing?
Well, I, I love reading Gabriel um,
My gosh.
yeah, Garcia, and I love Oscar Wilde. Like if I have to say, I like the little magic in it in his writing. I
Yeah.
love reading him. Then I like uh, I love reading Perumal Murugan, his translated works.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah. I've been in love with Punachi, and maybe someday I feel I could write something like that. So, yeah. So I just, again, I'm versatile reader. I keep reading anything that interests
Mhm.
me. And I guess in some way, whatever I read does kind of affect my reading. I, I, I write, I would, I, as- I mean, I aspire to write simplistically. I want my writing to be simple. I don't want it to be, very complicated. So I try to do that.
Hmm.
So I guess this is, maybe I don't know. I guess my writing is influenced by Indian authors. That is what, now when you ask me, I'm trying to think, perhaps that.
Mhm. Lovely. So, any advice to the aspiring writers who wish to tackle perhaps historical or biographical subjects in their work?
I guess my advice, yeah, my advice would be just to keep your minds open, because sometimes when you go to write historical stuff, sometimes the preconceived notions do come in between. Yeah, just to keep an open mind and go with it. Yeah.
Lovely. So, any last words on your book, this fantastic book, Lakshmi Panda, The Story of Netaji's Youngest Spy by Savie Karnal?
Thank you so much, Neeta. My last words would be, I just hope more and more people read this book, know her story. At least through this, we can do our part, in giving her due. At least we can all remember her.
Lovely, lovely, Savvy, wonderful book. And it's been a pleasure once again talking to you. And I really, really look forward to meeting you very soon. It's
Thank you
been
so
long
much.
due. It's been long due. And all the best with this book. I hope it even does even better than it's already doing. And as you just said, we really all hope that the story of Lakshmi Panda goes far and beyond. And I also wish to see some kind of a documentary, some kind of a series based on your book, so that, you know, how it is with visual media, it even goes further. And your book takes it to that level so that people can get really interested and she's being talked about.
Thank you so much.